That was an impotent burp. Welcome back to another episode. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Saturday Morning Nostalgia. Imagine yourself in 2007. Put yourself 18 years ago. For me personally, I was 21 by the end of the month. By the end of the year, you might be wondering, why are we playing an obscure Japanese role-playing game that released exclusively on the Xbox 360, the last great gaming console? It's because we're doing nostalgia here, and I'm trying to teach myself and maybe teach anybody out there who stumbles upon this. And if you do stumble upon it, I'm not entirely sure how you did it, but welcome, because the YouTube algorithm does not like content like this. It just doesn't. Either because I'm not talented enough, or I just don't play. I'm very bad at capitalism, which used to frustrate me, but I'm beginning to accept more and more as I've stopped worrying so much about profit accumulation. I still worry about it. It still takes up a small percentage of my day, but it doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't dominate my thinking like it used to. Blue Dragon is a game that came out on a system that Xbox 360 was a system. Peter Moore, who was one of the founding, CEO types of Microsoft, I'm not entirely sure, but in an interview he did recently, let me see if I can pull it up here. So Peter Moore, in a recent interview done by Eurogamer, so you're preparing to unveil the Xbox 360. How do you go about designing these reveal moments? What don't we see? There's years of work on the line here. You have to get the messaging right. And he responds, I remember we needed to describe what we're doing, and what we described was we're building a living entertainment experience powered by human energy. We're building a living entertainment experience, not a piece of hardware, and it's powered by human energy. Well, what does that mean? Xbox Live. It's powered by the people. You're building community, not just consoles. Now, what's crazy to me, I spent so much of my life being a Sony fanboy. But when I acquired my Xbox 360, which I did not acquire an Xbox 360 until December of 2007, before this game ever released, or after this game released, and I did not play this game until very recently. Now, what that means is the Xbox 360 was an incredible console with an embarrassingly amount of great games, many of which you've probably never heard of because a lot of them were developed in Japan. And Japan, the Xbox 360 sold horribly in Japan. And yet you have games like Blue Dragon, which released a Japanese-made game, which was released on the Xbox 360 in the West. And it was reviewed, I wouldn't say bad, but it got very mediocre scores. what Peter Moore is saying here is that Xbox Live was more important than the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 was a console that's kind of trapped in time. It's kind of locked in that like 2006 to 2013 time frame. Well, it released in 2005, but the really big hitters, the great games, didn't really start pouring in until like 2006, unless you count like Condemned Criminal Origins as like a great game, which I would say it's pretty good. But Xbox Live, multiplayer gaming, having connections with people online, whether that be friends who you just want to like mindlessly have a couple hours of entertainment every night, something you look forward to. You guys bitch about your lives, about, you know, how much you hate your job or your girlfriend is nagging you. Da, 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 da. That is the human energy, Peter Moore, and the mostly Western design, I'm going to guess, design team behind the Xbox 360. That was the manifesto. Was how can we capture gamers' attention, and not just the edgelord gamers who are into the Halos and the Gears of War, even though Gears of War is like a pretty self-aware commentary on like violence and fascism in the military. And yet that point was obviously not grasped, because there are people who unironically love Gears of War without getting the message, and they just like how it plays. Which, you know, it is what it is. Blue Dragon sold poorly, and it reviewed pretty tamely because in 2007, the JRPG had been left behind, and Blue Dragon is a game. Blue Dragon is a celebration of early to mid 90s. I would say specifically SNES, Super Nintendo RPGs, like Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, I would say, but even more specifically Dragon Quest. Hironobu Sakaguchi made this game. He's also the guy who, I'm not sure if he like found it, like came up with the idea for Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, but he had a heavy influence in both Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, which are obviously the most influential JRPG properties of all time. Blue Dragon was meant to like recapture that nostalgia, and it's absolutely wild to me that Hironobu Sakaguchi and his newly created, for the sole purpose of Xbox 360, like Microsoft was in such a good spot after the Xbox 360 launch. Like the Xbox 360 is by far their best console, Microsoft's best console, and because of this, like, Microsoft is just willing to throw money at things that they didn't even care if it sold well, I guess. I don't think there was really any expectation that a game trying to recapture the feeling of early to mid 90s JRPGs, I don't see how in 2006, 2007, like, the marketers thought this game would sell well at all. And it didn't. And yet Xbox threw so much money at Sakaguchi to make this, not only this game, but then 2008's Lost Odyssey. So you might be wondering, okay, what about Blue Dragon makes it so great? And you know what? I don't have an answer for you. I don't have a satisfactory answer. I played 5.5 hours of this game. Well, technically more, because the beginning of this game is pretty brutally difficult. And then once you kind of learn the mechanics, once you kind of like learn a couple of the RPG mechanics, the game, I mean, this is based on reviews and what I've heard, but the game is, and what I've experienced getting a little further into it, the game does start to get a little easier, and you start feeling OP if you're, if you know what you're doing. So as you can see here, this is a few hours into the game. This isn't the beginning of the game. I'm currently, what footage you're seeing here, it's not a dungeon. It's, I guess, like the main automobile you're in the game, like this game's version of an airship. But you're not flying, you're like digging underground. It's a drill machine, I think it's what it's called. And I'm trying to get out of here so I can get to the next town, the second town of the game. Game's version of an airship. But you're not flying, you're like digging underground. It's a drill machine, I think it's what it's called. And I'm trying to get out of here so I can get to the next town, the second town of the game. We have 3 characters here. We have Shu, who you could already tell Akira Toriyama worked on this game too, who is the, I believe the guy who draws all the Dragon Ball characters. So I really should have done more preparation before this, because I really don't know exactly like who worked on who focused on what aspect, but Blue Dragon was a like Dream Team collaborative effort, similar to like how Chrono Trigger was a kind of Dream Team collaborative effort in 1995. So Shu is your main character. He's kind of like your soldier or knight of the group. And then here's what's interesting. You have Jiro, or Yiro. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm going to go with Jiro, who his default is being a white mage, which is interesting because if you notice, Jiro is not a girl, he's a boy. And Kluk is kind of like your heavy hitter hybrid mage, or you can make her like black mage, where she casts, you know, the devastating spells like flare and water and, you know, the earth elemental based shit. I still have no idea what these warp keys do. Oh wait, yes I do. There's medals you get. There's medals you get in this game. So the warp keys, warp keys allow you to fast travel. Just, this game is somewhat modern, even though it released 2 decades ago. It did feature a form of fast travel. But where this game is, what I admire about this game more than anything, more than like these beautiful, you notice like these visual boxes here where it shows the character's face in real time, like a camera. There's like an in-game camera in real time filming their faces, and you can notice in the background like what is happening in the background in the actual footage of the game world is being reflected in that square avatar space whenever you talk to an NPC. And you got your medicine here, your heals. So where this game truly opens up, though, like people who like this game like it for the combat more than the story, even though I'm finding the story to be pretty interesting. So as I'm kind of like just dungeon crawling here and trying to figure out my way out of this drill machine to get to the next town, let's read a couple of snippets here. This is Honest Gamer. So this is I think, relatively, this is a recent review from a blog called Honest Gamers, who say this about the game. Blue Dragon is about as unoriginal as they come. It's a turn-based role-playing game focusing on an impetuous and idealistic kid and his friends as they fight to save the world from the machinations of a diabolical figure with godlike powers. That's Nene, the big bad of the game. Due to a series of events, the kids get their own taste of these powers, which gives them the physical and magical strength to fight the forces of evil, but they need to discover the true power within their hearts before they're actually able to realize their destiny and topple their mighty oppressor. Everyone lives happily ever after and all that crap. People, and even today, like, people were still, this review could have been written in 2007, and I wouldn't like bat an eye or whatever. Okay, here's Morrow, who is one of the characters. It's the first party member you can acquire after these three. And this is a character that reviewers, critics say is like notoriously annoying because he never shuts the fuck up. There's just so much about this game. Like, to have lived through the zeitgeist of the Xbox 360, and you just think of the Xbox 360 and you think of all the moments of like playing Halo with your friends, or like playing Gears cooperatively with another friend, or playing Burnout Paradise and trying to unlock all the achievements, or Dead Rising, even like single player games, not just multiplayer games. And having the achievement system was another Xbox 360 creation phenomenon, where, you know, the programmers are adding another level of, I guess, abstraction to kind of like curate the fun for you. You are no longer you no longer have to like worry about finding your own fun in gaming, because now there are achievements you can unlock that the programmers have put in there for you. So it's like this other level. And Blue Dragon, of course, has some of the most notoriously difficult achievements if you want to 100% the game. Like, I don't know how I feel about this yet entirely. Let's just look at how beautiful this is. Like these, I don't know, is this full motion? These FMVs here? This game just looks absolutely beautiful. And I'm capturing this on an Xbox Series S, which is I'll say working class version of the Xbox Series X, which is whatever iteration of like PC mod of console generation health we're in right now. Hell.
What makes you say that? Remember, he said not to lump them together. He knows about Nene, but hates him too.
Okay, that's enough.
What I admire about Blue Dragon is how it recalibrates your brain. It forces you to play it patiently, because it is a Japanese role-playing game. And I think that's the main reason people couldn't stand it. Westerners, especially, when they... Well, the thing is, nobody played this game because nobody in Japan bought it, because nobody in Japan owned an Xbox 360, because the Xbox 360 was marketed very heavily as a Western console. And second, the people who did review it in the West already didn't have the patience for it in 2007. And this is before social media and like smartphones took over. So, as you can see here, I am not playing this game slowly. I am playing this game like a cop, because I have been so conditioned over years and years of conditioning from Sony and Microsoft to kind of like cut out the fat, in a sense. Even with open world games, this has become a huge like problem, where there's so much content and so much of it is like meaningless and stuff you don't remember, but it's been like so streamlined and channeled into like this experience that you can't really get lost. There are times when I was playing this game where I was so disoriented. The mini map on the bottom right of the screen doesn't really help that much at all. You kind of just have to like force yourself to, almost like you're playing a survival horror game. You have to kind of like create a blueprint in your mind, and you kind of have to like, only through like repetition of like running around in circles in this area and grinding and, you know, fighting monsters, do you really get like this, you achieve this kind of like mastery of the level design. And it's level design you will not see in any game today. Claire Obscura, which is a like the newest like AA darling, because they do still exist. It'll probably sweep the Game Awards this year. That game kind of does that. And that game, I haven't finished that game. I got like halfway through it back during the summer. And I don't know, that's a pretty good game. That's a pretty good game, but I have to return to it. But it's interesting that we're now at a point in time where like you have a lot of these like
Who knew these ruins were so far below ground?
center right conservative bros who really, really, really liked Claire Obscura, but you could imagine them hating this game. And I think that's an interesting difference.
Item. Playable. Item.
There's all these little things too, like, oh yeah, I was talking about the achievements. So as you can see here in this game, there's so many items you can interact with, and the game does not go out of its way to like show you what's interactable. It's not like a survival horror game where there's like a flashy, like shiny object and you know exactly where it is. No, like you'll go in rooms in this game and you can literally explore just like very ugly, barely rendered shelves, and it'll give you something. And here's the real kicker. There'll be so many times in this game where you'll try to grab something and it'll do the animation of Shu trying to grab it, and then the voice in this game will say nothing. Because there's this voice in the game that'll say like playable whenever it's like back to beat, reminding you that you're playing again, you're not watching a cutscene, and it'll do it every time you search for an item. The voice will say nothing, which I think is a very endearing, charming thing that Sakaguchi put in there. I'm not entirely sure why. It's awkward, but it's so different and weird that I kind of love it. But so there is an achievement in this game for getting all of the nothings. So nothing literally becomes something in this game. And people, I remember I read the reviews of this and people fucking hated this, including like the Honest Gamers review that I pulled. So let's kind of dissect a battle here. So none of my characters have 100 HP yet, which is still fairly early on. I'm not sure how long this game actually is, like 40 hours. So I'm gonna cast a flare with Kluk. And then you see there's that meter. There's like a quick time, almost like a quick time like meter where you hold down the button and then you let go. And depending on where you land it, I'm still not entirely sure because if you notice, there's like a mess of icons on the screen. And then there's a little red area, which is supposedly the hotspot, but you don't always, it's not always in your best interest to hit the hotspot. And I'm not entirely sure why. There's a lot that this game doesn't tell you. And yeah, the Honest Gamers review kind of rolls its eyes at this like message the game is trying to convey, where like you're kind of like releasing your inner dragon to like fight cruelty and evil. And that's like at the heart of this game's story, even though I'm not entirely sure where it's going yet, which we'll get into it more when I show you a town. And I skip ahead because a lot of when I was playing this game and capturing it for this video, there was a lot of dungeon crawling. This game is heavy on the dungeon crawling early. And the first boss of this game is like insanely difficult, but Sakaguchi does this really interesting thing. Like, you know the trope in RPGs, JRPGs specifically, where like there's always, in every single Final Fantasy, there's a boss fight where you have to lose, and you kind of usually realize right away that you're going to lose. And I thought like the first boss of this game was one of those, because the fight was so impossibly hard. So I remember like I just got my ass handed to me. And then like the game over screen popped up, and I'm just like, I'm dreading it the whole time. Like, please don't show the game over screen. Like, just please let this be the one. Because there always comes a point with like a JRPG where like you think you're getting good at the game, or you think like, but there's always like this like nagging sense in the back of your mind that you haven't like found an exploit yet, or you haven't like learned enough about the intricacies of the combat system, where you're gonna bang your head against like a boss that's just going to like wreck your shit. That fear is always going to like come into place, and that first boss does it
It's a handshake.
quite well. And
Let's be friends. It's like one another. The Devi don't do anything like that?
We Devis dance.
Dance?
Yes, the Devi dance of friendship.
So, what's your name?
Maru Maru.
Tell me, Maru Maru, why do you have to shout so loud all the time?
Maru don't know.
So you can use magic too. Did you swallow a light spear? Are you one of Nene's comrades?
Maru would never be friends with a guy like him. Never, never, never.
Okay, I'm sorry.
so yeah, you can hear here how Marrow is kind of obnoxious.
You don't talk that differently either, Shu.
And this was
Tell me about that machine.
apparently a deal breaker for a lot of people who reviewed this game.
Oh, almost forgot. No time to play with you. Maru here to find medicine.
So the Devis are his people.
Don't follow
They look like this, and they're all...
mommy and all.
So the reason they're in this abandoned hospital, I'm not entirely sure why. Like the three of these, like the main party got out of their town because a land shark who comes around like every so often to like tear shit up. It's kind of like Attack on Titan that way. Rex shop in the town, so then they have to figure out how to save the world is like the gist of it. So then they find themselves in this abandoned hospital, and they stumble into this guy and how his town is in desperate need of medicine because they're all sick with this plague or whatever.
Item.
I apologize if you hear bumps or walking, because I am currently in a basement and my wife and my baby are upstairs, and my baby she's about to be 7 months, and she has discovered how to crawl but not entirely, and she gets super frustrated very quickly. So she's in this like state right now where she constantly wants to be moving and exploring but can't entirely, so she gets really pissed off and then starts doing this extremely obnoxious whining, and I'm just trying to keep my shit together because like I've been able to stim like my kid has given me like enough of a purpose in life now where I can like stim through most of the day, even if my body and spirit feel like it's completely broken. It has forced me to become fit. I try to stretch like 15 to 20 minutes a day, and then I try to meditate or walk every day too, which has been incredible getting myself into shape and getting sober for the most part. Like I still smoke weed. I smoke every night, full disclosure, but I barely drink alcohol anymore, and I don't do any hard drugs. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm still exactly like raw dogging life, but I definitely have like definitely have some kind of reliance on marijuana because I like look forward to like 7 o'clock every night. Because it used to be, when it gets dark, I can just light up, but now it gets dark at like 4:45, so I can't I probably could start smoking them, but I don't want to spend half the my conscious day
What's wrong with him getting medicine?
being high or whatever, even though like it doesn't really, it puts me into a focus state more than like a paranoid state now, because I do it so often, which I don't know if that's entirely it's not a good or a bad thing. It is the reality of like our 21st century condition. Like, there are Zoomers that, most Zoomers, if they're like trying to accumulate capital, are just like, they're on Vyvanse, they're on Adderall, they're on like various amounts of speed. And it's, it's not just coffee, especially if you're like trying to do abstract shit like this, where you're trying to come up with like conceptual things. You definitely need some kind of like life, like consciousness shifting substance to kind of like get you into that gear. And on a lot of levels, I think it's kind of sad, even though like I definitely like, there is the temptation to like start taking Adderall or Vyvanse and get into like that speed game, especially having a kid and always having to like have energy, not just physical but mental energy to like not act like you're a miserable fuck around her all the time. You know what I mean? Being sober is being constantly aware of your body. That was a long tangent, but
Maro, running out of time.
Wait, Marumaru!
I don't know. This really doesn't. I don't. This does tie into the game on some level, because it's about like waving your freak flag and creating these kind of like micro cultures. Yeah, I'm from Detroit, and I listened to the new Danny Brown album, Stardust, which is an album with... Well, first of all, Danny Brown doesn't even live in Detroit anymore. He lives in Texas, I think like somewhere near Austin, which is so like fascinating to me, because Austin is like this... was like once known as like this liberal like campus town, and it's kind of like become overrun with like Joe Rogan libertarian corporate types, and I'm not entirely sure how like what Danny Brown finds appealing about being in Austin, because I know he like lives in like a suburb where he's like, he really enjoys kind of like having it's not like I don't know if it's like a gated community, but he's really enjoying like the luxury of just like living in like a private space. And I definitely vibe with that. But I'm not entirely sure why Austin, Texas, but because too, like, I don't associate like trans people being like around Austin, because he released this album that has like, it has no other black artists on it. It's like mostly trans, like EDM or digicore or hyperpop artists like Fentanyl and Frost Children. I'm not sure if Frost Children is trans, but like or are trans. I know there's two of them. And then like Underscores, who if you haven't heard Underscores album Wall Socket, it is one of the best albums of the decade. So you have like Danny Brown collaborating with like all of these kind of like Zoomer, mostly white, privileged, some trans artists, and just putting out this like incredibly life-affirming, sober album that's like full of like drum and bass beats and like hyper pop.
So desperate about saving everybody here.
So yeah, and it's just like about being sober, and it's just really and sincere instead of like ironic and edgy. Anyway, you should check out Underscores and Danny Brown if you haven't, because they're interesting artists. So let's watch this cutscene. So, we get this slow rising action here with this this game. Not just gameplay wise is it slow moving, but the plot. Like I'm about 4.5 hours in here, and I still really. I mean, if you played a JRPG, you've kind of played all of them because they all kind of follow that same trope of like saving the world with a party of usually minors, and this game definitely goes into that. Clair Obscur is more like you're playing as like people in their early 30s, like proper adults. That's another reason I think Westerners were weirded out by this game, because they just didn't want to play as like 14-year-old kids ever again. Like the era of the SNES JRPG was just long gone. But this game is kind of like a comfort, even though this scene in particular here is very... And we're about to happen upon, why did I say that? We're about to get to like what I think is like the most impactful, like emotionally resonant part of the footage I captured. So you got all these townsfolk here who are sick. We have no idea what happened, but you can see the consequences. Everybody is just suffering. That's why we needed the medicine. And then we're going to get our introduction into Nene, even though if you played the beginning of this game, you've already met Nene.
Marumaru, you didn't get the wrong medicine by mistake, did you?
There's no way! He told Moro to find a jar with his
So here's the medicine Maro and the party collected from the abandoned hospital. Excuse me. I don't know what the hell that was. That definitely didn't come out of my asshole, though.
Sky? What about the sky? The violet clouds are building up again.
So the medicine is making them worse. After he was told that one dose would have them cured. I said earlier that Sakaguchi likes to throw in the tropey, you have to die at a boss, and the game goes on. So in this game, he throws, like, the first boss is, like, arguably the hardest boss in the game, because after that, he's like, okay, you know how to play the game. If you know how to beat this boss, you can beat the game. And then the game kind of becomes a breeze, even though there's, like, so many ways to play the game. And I appreciate that, like... There is such this like toxic perspective with like the 2007 Western gamer where it was almost like you had so many people bragging about how they could like exploit a game, and it was like, oh, this game is so easy because they scientifically kind of like just like messed around with the game and were able to like exploit it in like novel ways and make it just really easy for themselves. And then they would complain about this, that the game was too easy, even though they went through like all this effort of like finding the exploit. And that energy just kind of like, I don't know. It's like, why can't we just sit down with a game and just kind of chill with it for a few hours? And this is my this in theme of like 10 seconds here is incredible. This is the best like 10 seconds of RPG resting music I have ever heard. It's the Tim Rogers influence in me. It's really embarrassing admitting this, but like Tim Rogers who's Action Button, that's his YouTube channel. When I started watching him in like 2019, he kind of changed my life, because the reason I am even showing you this game is because of him. I remember sitting down at my Toshiba computer. It wasn't a Toshiba, but I can't think of it right now. It wasn't a Mac though, it was a PC laptop. In 2007, in my dorm room, half reading reviews of this game and people just calling it mid, and me just sitting there being like, wow, people just don't care about JRPGs anymore. And I only played 2 games the year before. I played a couple more. I think I played like Gears of War, but I played Gears of War after. I didn't play Gears of War when it released because I didn't have an Xbox 360 until the end of 2007. I played 2 games in 2006, and I didn't finish either one of them. I played Final Fantasy 12 and I played Kingdom Hearts 2, and I bounced off both of them, and I did not particularly like either one of them. And to this day, I still do not like either one of those games, even though I did like Kingdom Hearts 1 a lot when I played it. And I'm a pretty big stan for Final Fantasy and then after 10, I'm kind of like, eh. Okay, so here we go. Here's Nene getting beamed down. Another thing people hated about this game was this guy's design. He just didn't look like intimidating, I guess. So yeah, you just get a lot, like in the mid to late 2000s. I mean, this was already established in like early 2000s, how like the aughts were it was like the time for the edgelords. Even though Microsoft tried, like Peter Moore and Phil Spencer tried to act like, oh, this isn't just a gaming console for the edgelords. And it wasn't. It was if you knew what games to look for, like the Xbox 360 was an incredible console, but the whole point of like what I'm doing here, and spoilers for people who are watching this far, I am putting out a video essay sometime within like 2 to 3 weeks of posting this, where I will be talking about like the obscure games on the Xbox 360 that nobody talks about. Nobody talked about 18 years ago, and they certainly don't talk about them now. So this motherfucker tells Marrow that he can find this medicine, this elixir in this abandoned hospital, and it'll save his town. And not only is that not true and makes them worse, but then it does something to him. So he gets his like giant minion to hand him this chalice, and then he drinks from it. I don't know, that seems pretty like cruel and manipulative to me. And yet you have people saying this game just has like, yeah, duh, themes. It's absolutely like insane to me. But it's nothing like... I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about how men right now are really going through it. I mean, everybody is going through it right now, but like white, straight, hetero, normie men are really having a moment where they're like, there aren't people are no longer picking them up. And a friend I was talking to is also a father of 2. I'm a father of 1. And we were pretty much talking about this kind of like sad state of affairs where we kind of have to rely on ourselves and whatever we have from within, and then whatever the love our kid gives to us, because we can't really expect anything from our like support from our wives right now, because they are so tired, because they are giving so much of their attention and like literal life source to their children. So fathers are in this very like challenging situation right now where they like have to do a lot and also be the support. And they have to support themselves on top of that, whether you want to call that financially or psychologically, with like just getting through the day without like one of your wife's insults like really ruining your day. And that's why I've kind of been forced to like become mentally and physically healthy by trying to get into shape and by meditating and walking and all this shit. And I remember we were talking about it, and we were kind of like acknowledging how since we become fathers, we like it's almost like the blue dragon has been awakened inside of us. I guess I call it the will, where it's like you take the idea of the will, which is different from the ego. I feel like you can kind of like navigate where your ego can go. You can meditate to make it like less selfish or whatever. But the thing with the will is the will kind of operates outside of that, and the will just kind of takes over whether you want it to or not. The will is like the higher power. And this is like a very Nietzschean, or you could say like Schopenhauerian thing. So when I became a father, this kind of like dragon that was always inside of me was kind of like unleashed, where I no longer like give a fuck really what people think of me, at least not as much as I used to, because I feel so responsible and kind of like locked in right now. Because to me, like, being a parent, yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's like, but I wouldn't, and it's exhausting, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's like hard. It is hard, but there's something about it where it's like, it's easy because all you have to do is focus on your child and the well-being of your child. And if you are privileged enough or lucky enough to be in a situation where you can give a lot of your time and attention and all that stuff to your child, to your newborn, to your toddler, to your infant, whatever, you're in a position where you can, I lost my train of thought. God damn it. I really had something there. I really had something. It makes like, it gives you tunnel vision, because all you have to do is focus on your child. And me and my friend were talking about this, and I kind of made the point where, because he has, his firstborn is older than mine, so I'm kind of like asking him, so is this always going to feel thankless? And he said, no. Once she starts talking, it's going to get easier. It'll make the friction more like palatable or whatever, from like having to like, and I read that as like, okay, so like our only hope as men right now is to become really, really good fathers and then just be insufferable assholes to everyone else. And this realization is kind of depressing to me, because it does speak to this like alienation, where it's like, even as a father who like, and redemption is never going to be a thing that you just, one day you wake up and you've finally done it. You've blasted through the wall. You've overcome. You're a safe, secure person that other people would want to be around. You've redeemed yourself. But that's not how it works. Like, the circle of life or the spiral of life continues even after you redeemed yourself. And if you like keep yourself in that moment of when you redeemed yourself, you're going to lose it, and then you're going to be miserable again. So it's like, how do you remind yourself every day that redemption, you're never going to feel redeemed for more than a moment? And I have noticed this feeling within me. I know this is a nostalgia video, and this is how I wish I was in 2007. I wish I had not only better taste in games, and I wasn't just playing what the main discourse was telling me to play, what Heidegger would call the they. I'm not just playing Gears of War or Halo in my reimagined 2007. I'm playing Blue Dragon. And I'm also, I don't know, in 2007, I was not a good person. And I'm wagering that most 20 and 21 year olds, whether you're a millennial, whether you're a Gen X, or whether you're a Zoomer, you were not a good person when you were 20 or 21, because you can't be. You don't have enough lived experience yet. You haven't had enough humbling moments in your life. my first serious girlfriend broke up with me in the summer of 2007. And I got an Xbox in December of 2007. It was a few months after my girlfriend had broken up with me. So she was a year behind me. I was a sophomore in college. She went to a community college for a semester, and then she decided she wanted to commute to a college that was farther away, where it would take like 4 hours to get there. So I remember like our relationship was long distance because I was in college, she was in a community college, and I was helping her with I was helping her get into, because she had to like obtain a certain amount of credits to like prove she was like smarter than community college smart, you know, that weird hierarchical thing. And then she gets it, her grades are good enough, and then she dumps me because she wants to like, you know, she doesn't want to like, she probably knew deep down she wanted to like have the college experience. You can go into like what that means. We don't have to slut shame here, but at least she gave me the decency to break up with me before. The reason I'm being so personal here, you could call it narcissistic, I guess, because A, this is my channel, and B, I'm trying to make a point about, I'm trying to like simulate in some way the nostalgia I never really had. Like, what would my life be like in 2007 and 2008, 2009, and 2010 if I had access to Tim Rogers then? And Tim Rogers then was, he was in Japan, being I believe, kind of just like ideas man for a Japanese game development company who was adjacent to like EA, and getting to play really good games all the time and being able to like cultivate taste. And now we're kind of like in this, we're in this like era with like YouTubers or content creators. I don't know. I feel like I'm saying something here. Maybe this is my narcissism or some kind of like idealistic wishful thinking, but like there's been different generations of YouTube, and I don't think I'm ever going to be a successful YouTuber, but I feel like enough time has passed where like the H-Bomber guys and the Tim Rogers, kind of like those millennial slash I don't know, Gen X, elder millennial like generation of content creators is, I mean, I'm sure they're still gonna like be posting content occasionally, but like their peak is kind of like over. And now you have this like new generation who's still like waiting to be discovered, I feel like. And I feel like I'm like part of that wave, but I don't know any other like micro creator right now, because it is so hard to like, because I feel like we're all trying to figure out what's next. And yeah, there's like the mid to late 20s kind of like Zoomer early, like J-Reg, who doesn't do video game content. He does like accelerationist theoretical content. And I feel like whatever the next generation of like, well, if YouTube still continues to exist, because YouTube is in like, YouTube is kind of cooked in a lot of ways. Like interesting videos, interesting content is just getting shadow banned, especially if you like are pro-Palestine or I should say anti-Israel in any way. Your shit's most likely going to get shadow banned. Whatever the next generation of content creators and influencers, whatever it's going to be, it's probably going to be some kind of like hyper accelerated, you know, brain rot has afflicted all of us. And it's kind of cringe to sit here and be like, oh, we need to get away from that. Cause I feel like you're kind of just like going against whatever the discourse is. But that's also kind of the point of like what I'm trying to do here with this like nostalgia project I'll be rolling out in the next, like in the waning days of 2025, let's say. where
Fine.
I'm sorry. I don't.
like my nostalgia here is not for
What do you expect? I mean, I was just a little girl.
Blue Dragon. It is for the version of me in 2007, 2008 who had the like psychic time to
Maru, let's go find it together.
be able to find my taste and not just have it be dictated by like whatever the Xbox 360 marketing had in mind.
Moro was out hunting.
I mean, slow games like this were pretty culturally invisible. So then people, like, I guess you could call them slow people, were economically punished. Like, I'm going to make this point because
Like the cloud was
let's jump ahead to next week or a couple weeks. This is not the only Let's Play I'm going to be doing this month or next month. And I won't spoil the game I'm going to do, but if you follow Tim Rogers at all, or you kind of like follow me, you will probably have an idea of what it is. But 2007 was kind of the end of an era for me, because in 2008, I got my first, like,
would save the village.
I guess you could say, I'd had jobs before, but this was the job I had for like the next decade plus of my life. And it kind of like sucked all of my time, energy away. But I wasn't too tired to play games, but I was too tired to go to Blockbuster, or I guess you could say GameStop. And we'll get into that more
But then,
next time.
all lies. He just wanted that medicine for himself.
What is?
With like the triumph of liberalism or the Enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, capitalism, it kind of replaced the old aristocracy with a new aristocracy. Because like in feudalism, pre-capitalist, pre-modern times, I think family was taken more seriously. And like you could be a slow person and things would still be okay. And I, like, my natural state, I want to be a slow person. That doesn't mean dumb or simple. That means like I don't want my entire life, I don't want my main core value system to be, or my main value to be, profit accumulation. But that's what liberalism opens up. It opens up this freedom where anybody, if you work hard enough and you give enough of your time to the system, the idea is it'll pay you back in material wealth, in profit accumulation. And that's where I don't want to become an insufferable asshole to every single person in my life, because my sole focus is on profit accumulation, not just for my family, but for myself. So I can, like, when I was working my job, I wasn't like, when I was working in the 2010s in like moving up the chain and becoming a manager and all that, I wasn't worrying about anything financially, because I was like, when you're obsessed with accumulating profit, you're usually in the state of accumulating profit. So you're not thinking about how can I accumulate profit. You just kind of take it for granted because you're already doing it. But that's when like you start becoming kind of dead inside, and then you start thinking of like, you start living in your head in the present moment of like what you get to look forward to or what you need to look forward to. So it's this endless cyclical dance of like consumption and production. You produce in order to consume, you consume in order to produce. So like, oh shit, I'm called in on my off day and I have to work this 9-hour shift when I was looking forward to like maybe just staring at a wall and disassociating all day, but now I have to go into work. Well, okay, I can do that, and in the meantime I can kind of just like fantasize in my head about the next life altering game I get to play that's like a couple months away. Like, just, you know, keeping yourself in this like endless cyclical state of like hype. And you do it because you want to like contribute to the discourse online, FOMO, because you don't want to miss out. So you look forward to the game in your head as you're doing something you don't want to do. And then you get the game, you play it, and you either like bounce off it after a couple hours, or you do end up contributing to the discourse. And then you repeat the cycle with the next game, because it's like, oh, this game didn't really fill the hole in my achy breaky heart or soul, because no game is ever going to fill your soul. Even WoW, even 1,000 hours of WoW, even 700 hours of a mid power fantasy, 700 hours of a mid power fantasy in like Elder Scrolls is not going to do it. We are incomplete subjects. We will always be incomplete subjects. And the trick is, at least to me, is to figure out how to enjoy, and not just like in a positive life affirming way, because it's not always going to be that. There's going to be like enjoyment in your own like self-destruction when you do decide to change or whatever. It's not always going to be this like cute redemptive thing. And I feel like I'm crazy right now, even though I have never thought more clearly or coherently in my entire life. It drives me absolutely up a fucking wall that every single person I know, including me, is still locked in this obsession with accumulating wealth. When all of the like reports of like how AI has just gotten completely out of control with these data centers, and it's like accelerating global climate catastrophe even faster than we could have imagined, and yet like things still feel the same. It's like, can we break out of that? And I feel like the more difficult thing to break out of isn't the production. It isn't working a job we hate. I think the more difficult cycle to break is this idea of constantly looking forward to something. And I'm not just saying looking forward to an object. We don't even look forward to the object anymore, whether that be a video game or the new album or the new pair of shoes. We're looking forward to the discourse. We act like we live in an alienating time. But as Baudrillard said, this is the ecstasy of communication. Online discourse, tweeting, posting a thread that nobody fucking likes, and maybe like 2 people read, one of them being like a ghost you don't even know still like cares what you have to say. Is that alienation, or is that like we in the 21st century we no longer live like balanced. We're either in like deep despair where we can't be around other people, or we live in this ecstasy. But it's kind of this like internalized ecstasy. It's a private ecstasy where we're like really, really, really anticipating something to come. And we really want to tell maybe our coworkers about it, but we don't like them. So this is so when me and my friend were talking about this, and like how because he was trying to reassure me, oh, it gets better. You can only respect your kids' love to like get you through the day. My pushback to that was, well, that's very sad, because that seems very alienating if I have to like just let go of everyone else and just focus entirely on my kids to get. I shouldn't have to expect. It's like, yeah, my child does make me feel like a superhero, and that is incredibly empowering, and it has awakened the dragon inside of me. But I don't want to be a dragon that nobody else wants to fucking talk to. And we both kind of agreed that, like, I felt very cringe saying this, but it's like, yeah, you're not missing out on much by choosing not to go outside, out to the outside world. And we can get into it another day, like the Landian idea of the outside, which is not the 3D Matrix world, but like interacting with people and like random strangers at like at Costco, or working with coworkers in an office. Like, are those people bots or goblins? If I say that, then I sound like the fucking asshole in the ivory tower who doesn't want to be around the unwashed masses. Like, I'm some kind of like aristocratic noble who has figured out life, and I can't be bothered to interact with anybody else because I put up my boundaries, and I'm such a good person because of that, even though I come across as a fucking asshole. There's a small poo on the ground. Are we still... I feel like I have failed you immensely in trying to extol what is so great about this game, because I have yet to figure it out, but this overworld here does remind me of Clair Obscura. There is Blue Dragon in 2025 Western JRPG game design. And the thing of it is, we will probably be getting more, I'll call them Western JRPGs, which is what Clair Obscura is. It was made by a French team, so it's like a Western European take on a Japanese role-playing game. 2007, and you had Mass Effect, you had BioShock, you had Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, or yeah. I don't know, maybe I'll shock people by saying this, but I like out of those three games, Call of Duty Modern Warfare is probably the best. It definitely ain't BioShock though. That game sucks. It's the one absolute I'll say on this episode is that BioShock fucking sucks. I don't even say it sucks. It's mid. It's just kind of there. And I feel like that game more than anything is like contributes so negatively to like the discourse around like single player games. And that really like, that was the game that kind of like, that was the breaking point. That was a shift away from like comfort games like Blue Dragon, trying to do something that Dragon Quest, or trying to reclaim something that Dragon Quest was trying to do in the late 80s, early 90s. It's not always about succeeding and moving forward. And like I said, I played this game like a narc in 2025 because I've been so conditioned by these hyper-linear, like open world games are linear in the sense that like you always kind of know where you're going now, even if you like are trying to curate your own like unique experience. All you got to do is go open your map and then click a waypoint on a thing, and then you go straight to it. This game forces you to explore. And I appreciate that. Even though I'm not entirely sure why Tim Rogers calls this the second best Xbox 360 game behind Lost Odyssey. Aside from the fact that they were both made by Hironobu Sakaguchi and Mistwalker Studios. But I will say, I am going to... My vow in 2026 is to finish this, Lost Odyssey, and Nier. And I am looking forward to that in the present moment. I'll end on this because I'm about to run out of footage here. In the other day, I married into a Mexican family, and I used to dread going because I feel like I couldn't like, me and my friends have this issue with our wives' families where we've all married into like proud families. And yet and then we get called out by our wives that we're too quiet when we're around their family, because we all came from shameful families and we married into proud families. So there's like this expectation that I have to be like really cheery and kind of like contribute to the conversation and not like feel sorry for myself or whatever, you know, typical shit that like ashamed privileged white men do. So the other day, I was like, okay, I'm going to look forward to, this is what I'm looking forward to right now. I'm not looking forward to contributing to the hype cycle on Twitter or Reddit or whatever. I'm going to look forward to playing Xbox 360 games that no one remembers. And then I'm going to talk about them on here. And I spent some time doing that in my head, getting ready to go. In the moment, I was there, but I was also in the moment of like listening to what my family, the family I married into, what they had to say, be a listener to them, and then contribute when I could. Because I'll tell you this, I'll leave you on this. This is a very obvious point, but it's very critical, and I think it's ultimately at what the heart of what Sakaguchi is saying with Blue Dragon. It feels better to give than to receive. And I mean that in the sense, precisely in the sense that I don't mean giving in the sense where you're giving your time and your body to a corporation or whatever in order to accumulate profit. I mean just giving something to someone, your time, your attention, and not expecting anything in return. And I guarantee you, the more you start doing that, the more you are going to feel better about yourself emotionally and physically. So I'll leave it at that.